When my wife, Margaret, passed away last spring, I thought the hardest part was over. We had been married for 48 years. She was the calm to my storms, the reason our home in Savannah felt alive. After the funeral, the house grew too quiet. Even the old grandfather clock seemed to tick softer, as if mourning with me. A week later, my son Daniel called. His voice was polite, careful, almost rehearsed. "Dad, the lawyer scheduled the inheritance meeting for Monday. Vanessa and I will pick you up." Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, never hid what she thought of me. To her, I was an old man standing between her and what she believed was hers. I wasn't looking forward to that meeting. But I went. Out of respect for Margaret, and because I knew something she didn't. Inside my briefcase was a sealed envelope, my wife's final letter, written 3 days before she died. And what it said would silence Vanessa's laughter for good. Tell me where you're watching from, and hit like if you've ever let someone underestimate you, just to watch their smile disappear when the truth came out. The morning of the meeting was warm, too warm for early May. The air in Savannah felt thick, heavy, like even the weather knew something was about to break. I wore the navy suit Margaret had picked out for our anniversary trip to Charleston. It still smelled faintly of her perfume, lavender and something softer I could never name. When Daniel and Vanessa pulled up in their black Lexus, I was already waiting by the porch. Daniel got out first, adjusting his tie, avoiding my eyes. Vanessa stayed in the car, scrolling through her phone, her sunglasses reflecting the sunlight like dark mirrors. She didn't even greet me, just tapped the dashboard and said, "We're going to be late. Let's go." The attorney's office was downtown, an old brick building with creaking floors and the faint scent of lemon polish. We were led into a small conference room. On the table lay a single folder, my wife's handwriting visible on the tab, for reading upon my passing. Vanessa's smile spread wide, like a cat watching a mouse corner itself. She leaned back in her chair, crossing one leg over the other, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Well," she said. "Let's make this official." The lawyer, Mr. Harper, was a man in his 60s, kind eyes but a steady voice. He opened the folder and began reading. Margaret had written everything in her usual calm, precise way, a few small gifts for relatives, a donation to the church she loved, and then the estate division. The house, the savings, and our furniture were all mentioned, piece by piece. Vanessa listened intently, pretending to care, but I could see the calculation behind her smile. When Mr. Harper reached the section about the company, Callahan and Sons Woodworks, the small furniture business I'd built over 40 years, Vanessa straightened. Finally, she whispered. Margaret had written. "The company shall remain within the family. But ownership shall be transferred according to the terms in the document I left in my husband's possession." Vanessa laughed, an arrogant, sharp sound that bounced off the paneled walls. "Oh, come on. Another one of her sentimental riddles," she said. "Just say it plainly, Daniel inherits the business." I didn't answer. I simply reached down, unlatched my briefcase, and placed a single sealed envelope on the table. The one Margaret had written to me privately, her final wish. "Before we go further," I said quietly, "I think my wife deserves to speak for herself." The lawyer hesitated, then nodded. He opened the envelope carefully and began to read aloud. "To my husband, James, and our son, Daniel. If you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. I've had time to think, about love, about truth, and about legacy. There's something I've kept from both of you, something that must be said now, no matter how hard it is to hear." The room went still. Even Vanessa stopped smiling. "Daniel, you were born into a good home. You've always had a father who loved you unconditionally. But the truth, my dear, is that the business, Callahan and Sons, was not built for money or pride. It was built to provide security for the people who gave us their lives in work and loyalty." Mr. Harper's voice softened. "My wish is that the company not pass by blood, but by merit. I ask that control of Callahan and Sons go to the person who has served it most faithfully for the last 20 years, Mrs. Ellen Morris. Daniel blinked. Who? Your mother's assistant, I said. The woman who's been keeping the company afloat since your mother got sick. Vanessa's chair scraped against the floor as she shot up, her voice breaking through the quiet. This is insane. That woman's a secretary. She doesn't deserve a dime. Mr. Harper didn't even look up. Mrs. Callahan's will is legally binding. Vanessa turned to me, eyes blazing. You knew about this. I met her stare evenly. I did, I said. Margaret told me she wanted fairness, not greed. She said it was time the company went to someone who actually cared about it. Vanessa's lips trembled. For the first time, her confidence cracked. What about us? She hissed. We're family. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. Family isn't defined by who takes. It's defined by who gives. The silence that followed was heavier than any storm. Even Daniel, who had sat quietly the whole time, looked down at his hands, ashamed. When the meeting ended, Vanessa rushed out first, muttering curses under her breath. Daniel followed her slowly but paused at the door. Did Mom really mean that? He asked, voice trembling. She meant every word, I said. And one day, you'll thank her for it. He nodded faintly and left. I stayed seated, staring at the empty chair where my wife should have been. For the first time since her funeral, I felt her presence, not as silence, but as justice. The drive back home that afternoon was quiet. Daniel didn't say a word, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight that his knuckles turned white. Vanessa sat beside him, her lips pressed together, eyes burning behind her sunglasses. From the back seat, I could feel the tension like a storm ready to burst. When we pulled up to my house, Daniel didn't even look back. He muttered, "I'll call you later," and followed his wife into the car without another word. I stood there, watching the Lexus roll down the street until it disappeared behind the oak trees. The late sun reflected off the windshield like a final glare of defiance. Inside, the house felt both heavy and peaceful, heavy with the echoes of everything that had just happened, peaceful because for once, the noise of greed was gone. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and looked at the spot on the wall where Margaret's favorite photo used to hang, her standing in front of the first Callahan and Sons workshop, back in 1983, holding a hammer in one hand and smiling like she owned the world. I finally understood what she meant in that letter. She wasn't just giving away a company, she was protecting its soul. The phone started ringing that evening. First Daniel, then Vanessa, then Daniel again. I didn't pick up. By the next morning, there were 12 missed calls and 3 angry voicemails. I deleted them all. But on the 4th day, Daniel showed up at my doorstep. His eyes were swollen from lack of sleep. He looked younger somehow, like a boy who had just lost his way. "Dad, can we talk?" he asked. We sat on the porch. The same place where he used to sit with his mother every Sunday morning drinking coffee. For a while, neither of us spoke. The birds did the talking for us, their songs filling the warm Georgia air. "I didn't know," Daniel said finally, his voice low. "I swear, I had no idea Mom was planning that." "I believe you," I said. "But you didn't stop her either." He looked up sharply. "Stop her?" "Dad, Vanessa just wanted what was fair." "What's fair?" I asked. "Taking what someone else built. Mocking the woman who gave you everything." He flinched. "You think I didn't love Mom?" "I think you forgot how much she loved you," I said quietly. "And I think your wife made you forget who taught you what love even means." Daniel rubbed his face, exhausted. "You don't understand her, Dad. Vanessa, she just wants security." "No," I said. "She wants control. There's a difference." We sat in silence again. The wind rustled the magnolia tree in the yard, scattering white petals across the porch steps. For a moment, I thought I saw Margaret there, standing by the door, listening, the faint trace of her smile caught in the sunlight. "Dad," Daniel said finally, "Vanessa's not going to let this go. She says Ellen tricked Mom. She wants to take it to court." I sighed. "Then she'll be fighting the wrong woman. Your mother didn't make mistakes when it came to justice. Every document, every clause, she made sure it would hold up." "She's angry," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "She feels humiliated." "She should," I said. "Sometimes humiliation is the only way to wake up." That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching the furniture we'd built together, the oak dining table, the carved mantel, the bookshelves Margaret had sanded by hand. Everything in that house had a heartbeat. I ended up in her sewing room, the smallest room in the house. Her reading glasses were still on the desk. On the chair hung her old blue cardigan, the one she wore every night when she worked late. On the floor, tucked behind the chair leg, was a small wooden box I'd never seen before. My pulse quickened. For a second, I thought it might be another letter. I sat down, opened the box, and found a stack of receipts, old photographs, and a sealed envelope marked, "For Ellen." It wasn't my place to open it. But curiosity gnawed at me. Ellen had been Margaret's assistant for over 2 decades. I trusted her, but after everything I'd learned, trust felt like a fragile thing. I turned the envelope over in my hands, debating, until I noticed another note underneath it, one in Margaret's handwriting, addressed to me. "If you find this, James, it means Ellen hasn't yet received her letter. Please make sure she does. She's earned more than a salary, she's earned our respect and my trust. Don't judge her until you know everything." The handwriting wavered near the end, shaky from the illness that had taken her. My throat tightened. I put the envelope back in the box and decided to deliver it myself the next morning. When I arrived at the company office, most of the staff looked uneasy. The news of the inheritance had already spread. Some avoided my eyes, others nodded respectfully, unsure which side to stand on. Ellen was in her office, surrounded by piles of folders. Her usually calm face looked drawn, tired. When she saw me, she froze. "Mr. Callahan," she said softly. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." "I'm not here to talk about the company," I said, handing her the envelope. "This is from Margaret." Her hands trembled as she took it. She stared at the handwriting for a long moment before sitting down. I turned to leave, giving her privacy, but she stopped me. "Please," she whispered. "Stay." She opened the letter slowly, tears forming before she even began to read. When she finished, she handed it to me with shaking hands. "I think you should read it," she said. "You deserve to know." I hesitated but took it. "Ellen, you've been my strength when mine was gone. You kept our business alive, but more than that, you reminded me what honesty looks like. If James ever doubts your place in our story, tell him this: you were the daughter I never had." I looked up. Ellen's eyes were wet, but she was smiling. "I didn't want this, Mr. Callahan," she said quietly. "I only wanted to keep her dream alive." "I know," I said. "That's why she trusted you." Just then, my phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. "Vanessa's filing a lawsuit. Claims Mom was mentally unfit when she wrote the will." I stared at the screen, the air leaving my lungs in one long sigh. Ellen looked at me. "She won't stop, will she?" "No," I said. "But neither will I." That night, as I sat on the porch watching the city lights flicker in the distance, I realized Margaret had given me something far greater than money. She'd given me a way to see the truth about everyone around me. Vanessa's laughter at that meeting wasn't victory, it was the sound of a fuse being lit. And somewhere deep inside, I knew the explosion was still coming. The lawsuit arrived on a Thursday, served with a plastic smile and a "have a nice day." Vanessa's petition said Margaret had been mentally incapacitated when she wrote her final letter and that Ellen had unduly influenced her. It asked the court to void the transfer of the company and freeze accounts to prevent dissipation. The words were sharp. The intent was blunt. Mr. Harper called me in immediately and brought in a litigator, a compact woman in a slate-gray suit named Rebecca Boyd. She read the petition once, then again, slower, tapping a pen against the margin. "They're overreaching," she said, "but they'll try to win with speed. We answer tomorrow. Then we move to dissolve any freeze." "Can she actually freeze payroll?" I asked. "If the judge buys her urgency," Rebecca said. "We'll bring the facts." Facts, as it turned out, were on our side in neat, dated folders. Margaret had insisted on them. Mr. Harper produced a letter from Dr. Anika Patel, our family physician for 22 years, stating Margaret was fully oriented and of sound judgment at her appointment on March 28, 2025, 3 days before she signed the final directive. The letter was attached to cognitive screening notes, date, location, 3-word recall, serial 7s. Margaret had scored perfectly and joked with the nurse about out-testing her own husband. There was more. Mr. Harper slid over a smaller manila envelope, a thumb drive labeled in Margaret's tidy script, "Open if contested." I didn't touch it. Not yet. By Monday, Vanessa had moved for a temporary restraining order. Coastal First Bank flagged one of our operating accounts for review. Payroll was due in 9 days. Vendors were calling. Rumors flowed faster than facts. Ellen didn't flinch. She walked into my kitchen at 7:10 a.m. with a blue binder thick as a phone book. "Q2 plan," she said, setting it down. "Receivables, vendor terms, and a backup payroll bridge." "You already found a bridge?" I asked. "Against signed receivables," she said, flipping to a spreadsheet. $184,000 collectible within 30 days. I spoke to Marisol Ruiz at Coastal First. 90-day line for $120,000 secured by invoices, no personal guarantee required if the court freeze lifts by Friday. If not, we tighten cash, delay non-essential lumber purchase to week 3, renegotiate the Seabrook job to progress billing, and push marketing spends to July. I stared at her. "You pulled this in a weekend?" She shrugged. "We've done harder in hurricane seasons." At noon, the smear began. Vanessa posted on Facebook and LinkedIn that an office assistant had manipulated a dying woman to steal a family business. She tagged clients. Within an hour, a thread under the Harborview Hotel account lit up. Their GM replied that Ellen had saved them $82,400 in 2023 by redesigning a procurement schedule and delivering on time when bigger firms ghosted us. A foreman named Tom Whitaker wrote, "Ellen's been the spine since 2011. We work because she works." The comments kept coming, not loud, not theatrical, just steady, like people who'd been waiting to tell the simple truth. That night I finally opened the thumb drive. Mr. Harper's paralegal set a laptop on his conference table and pressed play. Margaret appeared in soft afternoon light, sitting at her sewing table in the blue cardigan she wore when she was thinking hard. "This is Margaret Callahan," she began, clear as a church bell. "It's March 29, 2025, Saturday. We're in Savannah. The azaleas are late." She smiled and then, just like Dr. Patel's note, she ran through orientation questions, recited the date, listed our address, named the mayor, the governor, and, with a little smirk, the president. She paused, then faced the camera. "I built Callahan & Sons with my husband, and we did it with the help of people who gave us their lives. My final wish is simple, the company goes to the person who has already been carrying it, Ellen Morris. I am not confused. I am not coerced. I am grateful." Her eyes softened. "To my family, you've been loved. To Daniel, you will always be my son. To James, forgive me for making you bear this alone. To Ellen, you were the daughter I never had. She wasn't done. One more thing, she said, and held up a paper I recognized by the watermark, the trust addendum we'd signed in 2019. If this is contested by a beneficiary, their bequest is reduced to $1. She chuckled. James said that part was a little spicy. I said that's how you season truth. The room was silent when the video ended. Rebecca exhaled. That's not just evidence, she said. That's a lighthouse. On June 3, the court set a combined hearing on the TRO and the will contest. Vanessa's lawyer filed a list of witnesses, including 2 junior salespeople and, this stung, our foreman Tom. I called Tom. He didn't pick up. 10 minutes later he texted, "Can I stop by tonight?" He arrived with a thermos and sat on the porch steps like he had 1,000 times waiting for Margaret to come back from the garden. "Boss," he said, "Vanessa came to my house yesterday. Left an envelope on the porch, $10,000 to say Ellen pressured Mrs. C. I took a picture. Then I took the envelope to Detective R. Halford at SPD. I also recorded her pitch on my doorbell cam." He slid his phone across. Vanessa's voice was crisp and careless. "Say the assistant told your boss what to sign. No one checks foreman statements." I felt something old and hard shift into place inside me. Not anger, aim. "Tom," I said, "you just saved 30 paychecks." He shrugged. "Mrs. C saved mine a dozen times. Consider us even." The next day Rebecca filed a supplemental affidavit, Dr. Patel's letter, the cognitive notes, the video index, Tom's statement, and a screen capture of Vanessa's post paired with a letter from Harborview. She added a short motion citing the 2019 no contest clause. Vanessa doubled down. She arrived at mediation in a white pantsuit, chin high, Daniel 2 steps behind, eyes bruised from too little sleep. Her lawyer opened with a threat about public relations fallout and legacy stain. Rebecca didn't blink. "My client's legacy is built into floors and tables that outlast the news cycle," she said. "Here are our exhibits." The mediator, a patient man with cufflinks shaped like compasses, asked if there was any path to peace. "Yes," Rebecca said. "Withdraw the contest. Apologize in writing to Ellen and the staff. Accept the bequests Margaret left you, college fund for Leo and a $25,000 distribution to Daniel from the non-business assets. Sign a mutual non-disparagement. We all go home." Vanessa laughed, that same brittle sound from the first meeting. "We don't take scraps," she said. "We take what's ours." Rebecca nodded once. "Then see you in court." While lawyers traded paper, the company still needed lumber and people still needed paychecks. Ellen's bridge line closed on Wednesday once the bank saw the judge had not granted a blanket freeze. We kept the lights on with progress billing and a rush purchase order from a boutique inn on Tybee Island, 12 walnut headboards and 3 reception desks due by July 15. Work filled the air again. The shop smelled like sawdust and varnish and purpose. On June 3, I set my briefcase on the black walnut table in the boardroom, a table I had oiled 100 times, a table that knew our family better than we did. Inside were 4 things: Margaret's video on a fresh drive, Dr. Patel's letter, Tom's affidavit, and a folded sheet in Margaret's script that I had not yet shown anyone. She had titled it, simply, "If We Must Go to War." The hearing room in the courthouse was cold and bright. The judge was a tall woman with a practical haircut and the look of someone who liked facts more than speeches. Vanessa sat at counsel table, perfect posture, lips pressed so tight they turned pale. Daniel sat beside her, hands folded, eyes on the floor. Rebecca opened with the narrow point, relief from the freeze, and walked the judge through dates, documents, and payroll. "People who have been here 11 to 24 years depend on those checks," she said. "None of them are parties to this case. Vanessa's lawyer argued capacity, persuasion, shadows and motives. When he finished, Rebecca plugged in the drive. Margaret filled the screen. The judge watched the entire 10 minutes without interruption. When it ended, she looked down at the petition, then up at Vanessa. "Ms. Callahan," she said evenly, "contesting this will in the face of this record triggers the 2019 no contest clause. Do you understand that?" Vanessa's jaw worked. This video could be fabricated. Dr. Patel took the stand for 5 minutes and made that argument look foolish. The nurse confirmed the same cardigan, the same date, the same jokes. Then Rebecca called Tom. He wore his Sunday shirt and spoke into the microphone like a man who'd rather be on a ladder. He told the truth, then played the doorbell clip. The room went quiet in a new way, heavy, decisive. The judge dissolved the temporary freeze on the spot. "Payroll may proceed," she said. "As to the will contest, we will reconvene in 2 weeks for limited testimony and final argument. And counsel, advise your clients about the risk they are courting." Outside, summer heat rushed up the courthouse steps. Daniel followed me to the sidewalk. "Dad," he said, voice small, "if we stop this, does the college fund for Leo still stand?" "Yes," I said. "Your mother wanted that no matter what." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Vanessa won't quit." "You will," I said softly, not unkindly. "Before this takes the rest of you." That night, alone at the kitchen table, I finally opened Margaret's last folded page. "If we must go to war," she had written, "remember the point was never to win. The point is to protect the people who built this with us, and to give them a place at the table after we're gone. If they choose pride, let them keep it. It's the only thing you can't put in a trust." I closed my eyes and could almost hear the old clock dare to tick a little louder. The fuse Vanessa lit back in Mr. Harper's office was still burning, but now the room was brighter. We had light enough to see the path, and just enough time to walk it. 2 weeks passed like a slow drumbeat. Every day, the courthouse hearing drew closer, and every night, I could feel Margaret's presence in that house, steady, silent, and certain. Ellen kept the company running with machine-like focus. She worked late every night, often leaving long after the others had gone home. One evening I stopped by her office just to thank her. She looked up from the glowing computer screen, tired but smiling. "You don't have to thank me, Mr. Callahan," she said. "Yes, I do," I replied. "You're the only reason that place still breathes." She hesitated, then said softly, "It's not just me. Everyone's working double shifts to show her legacy still matters. They want to make her proud." That line hit deep. "So do I," I said. The Friday before the final hearing, a courier delivered a thick envelope to my doorstep. It was from Daniel. The handwriting was shaky. Inside was a short note and a folded newspaper clipping. "Dad, I can't undo what Vanessa's started. But I can stop being part of it. I filed a withdrawal from the case. Whatever happens next, just know I'm sorry." The clipping was from the Savannah Daily Press. Local business fights family feud in court over founder's will. The photo showed Ellen walking out of the courthouse with Rebecca. Vanessa wasn't in the picture, but her name filled the headline. That night, Daniel called. His voice sounded thinner than I remembered. "Dad, she's furious. She said I betrayed her." "Did you?" "I think I finally did something right." He told me Vanessa had packed her things, taking their son Leo to her mother's house in Atlanta. She's convinced the judge is against her. She's talking about going to the press. I sighed. The truth doesn't need a press conference, son. It just needs time. He didn't answer. Before hanging up, he whispered, "I wish Mom could see how wrong this got." "She can," I said. "Maybe not the way we do, but she can." Monday, June 17th, the final hearing. The courtroom was fuller this time. Local reporters sat in the back rows, pretending to check their phones but listening to every word. Vanessa's lawyer arrived alone. His client entered a few minutes later, wearing all black like she was the widow, not me. She took her seat with slow, deliberate grace. Her eyes met mine across the room, cold, venomous. Rebecca leaned over and whispered, "She's lost the case, but she doesn't know it yet. Just let her talk." The judge entered, and the courtroom rose. The first hour was procedural, evidence formally submitted, witness confirmations, document authentication. Then came Vanessa's testimony. She stood, smoothing her skirt, and faced the judge with that polished southern charm that had fooled plenty of people before. "Your Honor," she began, "Mrs. Callahan was a kind woman, but toward the end, she was confused. She barely recognized family members. The letter giving away the company doesn't reflect her intentions." Rebecca stood. "Objection. Speculation." "Sustained," the judge said. Vanessa's lawyer tried to redirect her. "Mrs. Callahan, did you witness any signs of mental decline?" "Yes," she said quickly. She thought her assistant was part of the family. She said things that didn't make sense." Rebecca rose again. "Permission to cross?" The judge nodded. Rebecca approached slowly, holding a single sheet of paper. "Mrs. Callahan, you mentioned that Margaret's mind was failing. Do you recall attending a dinner at her home on March 26? Vanessa blinked. "Yes." "Do you recall complimenting her for remembering every guest's name and for reciting the company's quarterly report from memory?" Vanessa's jaw tightened. I don't remember that." Rebecca smiled faintly. "That's strange, because I have your text from that night." She held up a printed screenshot. "You wrote, 'She's sharp as ever. Creepy how she remembers every number.' Is that your message?" Vanessa's eyes darted toward her lawyer. "That was sarcasm. Was it? Or was it the truth, until you realized the truth didn't serve you?" A murmur spread through the courtroom. Vanessa's lawyer objected weakly, but it was too late. The judge was already noting something down. Next, Rebecca called Dr. Patel again, brief, precise, devastating. Then Ellen took the stand. She spoke quietly, her hands folded in her lap. "I loved Mrs. Callahan," she said. "Not like family by blood, but by choice. She believed in people. She believed in fairness. I didn't want her business, I just wanted to honor the work she and her husband built." "Did you ever ask to be written into her will?" Rebecca asked. "No," Ellen said. "When she told me she had, I begged her not to. I told her Daniel would never forgive her. She smiled and said, 'Maybe one day he will.' Truth takes longer than forgiveness." The courtroom was silent. Even the reporters had stopped typing. When it was Vanessa's turn for cross-examination, she didn't even look at Ellen. Her voice trembled between anger and fear. "You manipulated her. You wanted power." Ellen didn't flinch. "Mrs. Callahan didn't leave me power. She left me responsibility. There's a difference." The judge finally called for closing statements. Rebecca spoke calmly, logically, but every word struck deep. "This case isn't about a fortune. It's about integrity. A woman built a business from nothing. She left it not to those who demanded it, but to the one who protected it. And the people who betrayed her memory did so because greed is louder than gratitude. But truth," she said, looking directly at Vanessa, "always finds its voice again." When Vanessa's lawyer stood to respond, his argument felt hollow, like an echo of a fight already lost. The judge took a recess. 20 minutes later, she returned with her decision. "The evidence of undue influence is non-existent," she began. "The testator's mental capacity is proven beyond question. The video, the physician's statement, and the testimony of witnesses confirm full awareness. The petition to void the will is denied. Vanessa stiffened. Additionally, the judge continued, under the 2019 no contest clause, any beneficiary challenging the will forfeits their inheritance. The words landed like hammer blows. In conclusion, the court reaffirms the legality of Margaret Callahan's final wishes. Ownership of Callahan and Sons remains with Ellen Morris. The estate is distributed per the terms of the trust. This matter is closed. A hush fell over the room. Then, from somewhere behind me, I heard soft applause. It was Tom, the foreman, standing near the door. The judge shot him a warning glance, but didn't stop him. Vanessa's face went pale. She rose abruptly, grabbing her handbag. "This isn't over," she hissed as she passed me. "It is," I said. "You just don't know what peace looks like." She pushed through the double doors, and for the first time in months, the air around me felt light again. Ellen turned to me, tears in her eyes. "It's over, Mr. Callahan." I nodded slowly. "No. It's beginning again." Outside, sunlight broke through the courthouse windows. Reporters waited on the steps, but I didn't stop. I walked right past them, breathing in the summer air that smelled like rain and wood and something new. I wasn't thinking about money, victory, or revenge. I was thinking about Margaret. About how her final wish wasn't about punishment, it was about balance. That night, I sat on the porch, the world quiet except for the hum of cicadas. I poured a glass of whiskey, raised it toward the stars, and whispered, "You did it, Margaret. You finally taught them what legacy really means." In the distance, thunder rumbled softly, as if she was answering back. The morning after the verdict, Savannah felt different. The air seemed cleaner, lighter, as if the entire city had taken a deep breath after a storm. The Callahan name was back in the paper, this time under the headline, "Truth Restored, Court Upholds Founder's Final Wish." The article quoted Dr. Patel, even included a photo of Ellen at the courthouse steps. Her expression was modest, calm. Mine was nowhere to be found. I had declined every interview. Some victories speak louder in silence. At the shop, things moved like clockwork again. The whir of saws and the rhythmic slam of hammers echoed through the open bays. The men whistled while they worked. Even the radio sounded brighter. When I walked in, conversation stopped for a second. Then Tom, standing near the sanding station, shouted, "Morning, boss," and the others followed, a wave of respect that caught me off guard. Ellen emerged from the office, holding a clipboard. "Payroll's been processed," she said with a grin. "And the Seabrook job signed a renewal, 15 more units." I chuckled. So the universe decided to side with the honest for once? Or maybe Mrs. Callahan gave it a nudge, she said softly. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. I thought it would be quiet, like the sound after thunder. But peace, I learned, hums. It hums in the routine, in the smell of sawdust, in the laughter of people who survived the worst and kept working anyway. By afternoon, Daniel arrived. He looked nervous, but different, less polished, more human. His tie was gone, sleeves rolled up. He waited by the doorway like a boy about to face his teacher. "Dad," he began. "I came to apologize in person." "You already did, in writing." "Not enough," he said. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm trying to fix what I broke." I studied him. His voice didn't tremble like before. There was a man in front of me now, one who had finally seen the cost of cowardice. "You didn't break the business, Daniel," I said. "You just forgot what it was built on." He nodded. "Ellen offered me a position. Not management. Floor supervisor. Said I'd start at entry-level pay. I took it." I blinked, surprised. "You sure you can handle that?" "I need to," he said quietly. "If I ever want to earn back the right to call this place ours." There was nothing to say. I reached out and shook his hand. For the first time in years, I saw my wife's reflection in his eyes, not her face, but her decency. That weekend, I drove to Bonaventure Cemetery with a small bouquet of white lilies. The same kind Margaret loved to plant by the porch every spring. The gravel crunched beneath my shoes as I made my way to her stone. It was simple. Margaret and Callahan. 1953 to 2025. Beloved wife. Builder of homes and hearts. I brushed a few fallen petals away and placed the flowers down. You were right, I said softly. Truth took longer than forgiveness. But it came. The wind moved through the moss-draped oaks, whispering like soft applause. I stood there for a long time, letting the peace of that place settle into me. Before leaving, I noticed something new, a small envelope wedged beneath the vase. It was sealed, slightly weathered. On the front, in Ellen's handwriting, were 3 words, "For Mr. Callahan." I opened it carefully. Inside was a note and a folded check. James, I found this while reorganizing Mrs. Callahan's files. It's a life insurance policy she updated last year. You're listed as sole beneficiary, but there's also a personal addendum. She wanted you to use it not for yourself, but to give someone else a new beginning. Ellen. The check was for $250,000. For a long time, I just stared at it. Margaret, even from beyond, was still setting things in motion. She always believed that healing didn't end with the truth, it began there. That evening, I called Daniel. Son, I said, how's Leo? He's adjusting. School's fine. Vanessa's still in Atlanta. Good, I said. I'm setting up something in his name, a foundation for trade apprenticeships. Callahan Future Hands. I want him to be the first scholarship recipient. He was silent for a moment. Dad, why? Because he deserves to build something real, not inherit it. In the following weeks, the company transformed. Ellen kept her title as managing director, but she refused a raise. She turned one of the spare offices into a mentorship space, hung Margaret's old photo on the wall, and called it the workshop room. Every Friday, the entire staff gathered there for coffee and stories, not meetings, just memories. Daniel started on the floor, learning from Tom and the others. The first time I saw him sanding a cabinet frame, he looked awkward, clumsy, but determined. The crew treated him like any other worker. No titles. No shortcuts. By the end of the first month, his palms were calloused, his shoulders sore, but there was a quiet pride in the way he carried himself. One evening, I caught him standing by the same walnut table that had seen so many battles, inheritance meetings, arguments, reconciliations. He ran his hand along the grain. You know, he said, Mom always said wood remembers. That every mark tells a story. She was right, I said. This table's got enough stories to fill a library. He smiled faintly. Maybe one day, Leo will add his own. If he earns it, I said. He nodded. He will. I'll make sure of it. Summer turned to fall. The company was thriving again. Orders doubled, the workshop buzzed with new apprentices, and Ellen finally took a week off, her first in 15 years. Before leaving, she handed me a sealed folder. What's this? I asked. Something I've been meaning to tell you, she said. Don't open it until I'm gone. She smiled, that same calm, knowing smile Margaret used to wear, and walked out. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the folder. Inside was a letter. James, I wanted to tell you this in person, but I know you wouldn't let me. The truth is, Margaret's final wish wasn't just to give me the company. It was to give you peace. She asked me to make sure you stayed connected to what you built, not as an owner, but as a teacher. I've established a permanent board seat in your name, Founder Emeritus. The staff voted on it unanimously. Every apprentice who walks through these doors will learn your methods, your values, your way of doing things. You'll always be part of it. Ellen. I sat there, staring at the letter until the words blurred. It was strange, how full a man's heart could feel after being broken so many times. Later, as I locked up the shop, I ran my hand over the doorframe. There, carved faintly in the wood, was a signature, M.C. 1983. Margaret had done that the day we opened. I traced the initials with my thumb and smiled. Legacy isn't about ownership, I whispered. It's about continuation. The lights flickered off behind me, one by one, until only the faint glow from the street lamps shone through the workshop windows. Outside, the world was quiet again. Not the hollow silence of grief, but the full, living quiet of something reborn. And for the first time since she left, I felt truly at home. By October, the workshop felt alive again. Not just functional, alive. The smell of oak and varnish greeted me each morning like an old friend. The air buzzed with the steady rhythm of saws, laughter, and the radio humming old blues songs from the corner shelf. Ellen had returned from her first vacation in decades, and the entire crew had surprised her with a framed plaque above the main entrance. Founded by Margaret and James Callahan, preserved by the people who believed. She stood beneath it, eyes glassy but smiling. She'd have loved this, she said. I nodded. She already does. Daniel was in the corner, measuring table legs with a tape and pencil tucked behind his ear. His movements were slower now, deliberate. He'd learned that precision wasn't about speed but respect for the craft and for the hands that came before his. I watched him work, quietly proud. Around lunchtime, Tom walked in holding a stack of envelopes. Payroll's in, he said. And a letter came for you, boss. Looks official. I opened it and frowned. The return address read Savannah Probate Court. Ellen looked up from her desk. More paperwork. Probably a post-case formality, I said. But as I read, my stomach tightened. The letter wasn't a formality. It was a notice. Vanessa Callahan had filed an appeal. Ellen's face drained of color. She's still fighting. I nodded slowly. Apparently, she doesn't know when she's beaten. Rebecca called later that afternoon. She's appealing on procedural grounds, she explained. Claims new evidence, that Margaret's mental state deteriorated between her doctor's exam and the will's signing. Do we have to go through this again? I asked. Maybe not, she said. Appeals rarely overturn clear verdicts. But she's buying time. Maybe hoping to force a settlement. She'll get nothing, I said flatly. Then she'll get noise, Rebecca replied. People like Vanessa always do. The noise came fast. Anonymous posts online, whispers about forgery, claims of corporate theft. But this time, something different happened, the community fought back. Old clients, craftsmen, and local families flooded social media with their own stories, photos of handcrafted tables, testimonials about how Margaret had mentored young builders, messages of loyalty to Callahan and Sons. One post from a retired teacher named Mrs. Palmer went viral. Margaret and James made my kitchen table in 1989. My kids did homework there, my grandkids still eat pancakes there. That table outlived my husband and my grief. People like them don't just build furniture, they build permanence. Within days, Vanessa's online accusations vanished. Her name was quietly scrubbed from company search results. Reputation, like trust, isn't won through money, it's rebuilt through consistency. A few weeks later, Daniel stopped by my house one evening, his son Leo in tow. It was the first time I'd seen my grandson since the whole ordeal. He looked taller, quieter, the kind of quiet that hides too many questions. Hi, Grandpa, he said cautiously. I smiled. Hey, champ. You still like cars? His eyes lit up. Yeah. Dad says you built one once. More than one, I said, leading him to the garage. Come on, I'll show you. The garage was more workshop than parking space, old tools on the wall, half-finished frames, Margaret's garden bench still halfway sanded. Leo ran his fingers over the smooth oak planks. Did Grandma help? Every nail, I said. She had better aim than I ever did. Daniel stood by the door, watching us. He's been asking about her, he said quietly. That's good, I replied. Let him. The more he asks, the longer she stays. We spent the next hour sanding and talking, about school, about cars, about what it means to make something with your hands instead of buying it ready-made. When they finally left, Daniel paused at the door. You know, he said, I think she'd be proud of us. She is, I said. Because we finally learned the lesson she spent her whole life teaching. By winter, the foundation I'd mentioned, Callahan Future Hands, had officially launched. We opened applications to young carpenters, welders, and design students from local trade schools. The first grant went to a 19-year-old girl named Emily Reyes, who'd been restoring abandoned furniture for single mothers. When she came to the shop to thank us, she said something that froze me. I read about your wife, she said. She proved that what you leave behind isn't just what you build, it's who you build up. After she left, Ellen turned to me. You hear that? Margaret's still teaching. I smiled. That's because good lessons never retire. In early December, the appellate court dismissed Vanessa's case, unanimously. Rebecca called me that morning, her voice carrying a rare warmth. It's done, James. She can't appeal further. It's over for good. I didn't cheer. I just nodded. Thank you, Rebecca. For everything. Don't thank me, she said. Thank the woman who planned this 3 steps ahead of all of us. That evening, I found myself back in the workshop, alone. The sun had dipped low, pouring gold light through the high windows. Dust floated in the air like slow-moving stars. I sat at my bench, running my fingers over a block of walnut, tracing the veins that looked like rivers frozen in time. On the wall above me hung a small frame, a faded photograph of Margaret and me in front of the original garage shop. She's holding a saw, laughing at something I said. I stared at it for a long while, then whispered, You really did see everything coming, didn't you? The air in the room felt warm, alive, as if she was there. Maybe she was. Then, from the hallway, Daniel appeared. Dad, he said softly. There's someone here to see you. A moment later, Ellen stepped in, holding an old wooden box. This was in the storage unit, she said. Your name's on it. I opened it. Inside were our earliest design sketches, Margaret's notes written in the margins, her neat handwriting, full of confidence. But underneath the papers was something else, a small leather-bound journal. I flipped it open. Inside were pages of entries, business ideas, reflections, quotes. The last page stopped me cold. If one day this business stands without me, let it stand taller than before. And if the truth ever destroys the peace, let it do so kindly. Because truth, even when it burns, leaves behind clean ground to rebuild. Ellen looked at me, eyes misty. She wrote that months before she passed. I nodded slowly, closing the journal. Then we're finally standing on clean ground. We didn't speak for a long time. The sound of the city outside, a distant train, a barking dog, the hum of life continuing, filled the silence. When Ellen finally left, I stayed behind. The last light of evening spilled across the floor, illuminating the workbench and the old brass plaque Margaret had insisted on hanging there decades ago. It read, Do it with care, or don't do it at all. I placed my hand on it and whispered, We did it with care, love. All of it. Outside, the first snowflakes of the season drifted through the air, rare for Savannah. They melted on the windows instantly, but for a brief second, they looked like falling stars. And standing there, surrounded by the echoes of everything she built, I realized, grief fades, but legacy doesn't. Legacy grows. Winter in Savannah is usually brief, more memory than season. But that year, it lingered, crisp mornings, quiet evenings, skies painted in muted silver. The kind of weather that makes you pause, take inventory of what's left, and realize how much you've survived. I spent most mornings at the shop, not to work, but to listen. The sound of saws, the thud of hammers, the laughter, they were the heartbeat of everything Margaret and I had built. Every corner of that place still carried her fingerprints. The grooves in the floor where she used to stand sanding edges, the window ledge where she'd set her coffee cup every morning. Time hadn't erased her, it had woven her deeper into the wood. On the first Friday of the new year, Ellen called everyone together. The apprentices, the old crew, even Daniel and Leo stood shoulder to shoulder as she unveiled something new, a small brass plate mounted near the entrance. The Callahan Promise. We build with integrity. We pass on our craft freely. And we protect each other like family. It wasn't just a motto. It was a vow. I saw it in their faces, this wasn't my company anymore. It was ours. When the meeting ended, I slipped out the back door and sat on the same bench Margaret had built 30 years ago. Daniel joined me a few minutes later, holding 2 cups of coffee. Still black, no sugar, he asked. I smiled. After 70 years, I'm too old to change. He handed me the cup and looked out toward the workshop. You know, Dad, I think I finally get what Mom was doing. She wasn't cutting us out. She was cutting the rot. I nodded. She just wanted to make sure what we built kept its soul. He was quiet for a long time, then asked, "Do you think Vanessa will ever understand?" "Maybe one day," I said. "When the noise in her heart finally goes quiet." Leo came running over, waving a small wooden birdhouse he'd finished painting. "Grandpa! Look! I did it myself." I took it from his hands, studying the uneven nails, the crooked roof, the bright streaks of blue paint. It was imperfect, and beautiful. "You sure did," I said, smiling. "And you know what? It's perfect, because you made it." He grinned and ran back toward the others. Daniel watched him go, pride softening his face. "I think he's going to be okay," he said. "So will you," I replied. "As long as you keep building something worth believing in." That night, I returned home and sat by the fireplace. The flames flickered softly against the framed photos on the mantel, our wedding day, the first workshop, Daniel's graduation, Margaret's smile in every one. I picked up her old journal and opened it to the first page. We are only ever caretakers of what we love. The trick is knowing when to hold on, and when to let go. I closed it gently, leaning back in my chair. The world outside was still, but my heart felt full. For nearly half a century, I'd thought legacy was about what we left behind. Now I knew, it's about who carries it forward. Margaret had been right all along, truth doesn't destroy families. Lies do. And when truth finally rises, no matter how long it's been buried, it doesn't just expose the cracks. It shows where to rebuild. The fire popped softly. I raised my glass toward her photograph and whispered, "We rebuilt it, love. Brick by brick. Just like you wanted." The clock in the hallway chimed once, low and warm, and for a moment, it felt like she answered. Outside, the night was calm. Inside, the legacy lived on, in wood, in laughter, in truth.